Welcome everybody to another episode of USO MVP. That is Military Virtual Programming. Exciting that you could join us from around the world, wherever you may be. We want to start off by saying thank you for your service, and we hope that you are safe and healthy wherever you are. All right, today's episode, my guest is actor, director, producer, entertainment industry titan, James Beek. James, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining us.
I'm good. Absolutely honored to join you guys.
So I like to start off by asking my guests where they are and how they've been busying themselves during quarantine.
I am in Los Angeles, California. I have been very busy. I am blessed and fortunate enough to have 5 young children, all under the age of 10. So I felt like the richest man in quarantine with all 5 of them. People have come up to me and said, "How do you do it with 5?" And I don't know how you do it with 1. 1 would be crazy to me. So anybody out there with 1 kid in quarantine, hats off to you. I've got a whole preschool. They're socialized. They're fine. So
that's cool.
And I've been writing and creating too. Sorry.
That's great that you've been able to use this time to spend a lot of it with your family. That's, maybe the one positive that comes from quarantine is that people are home and they're spending a lot of time. I mean, especially in the entertainment industry, we don't get a lot of time to be home. So it's been nice to have this time with our family. I want to remind everybody who is checking out this interview that you can ask James a question if you would like. All you need to do is use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. Just type in your question for James. Make sure to tell me what your name is and where you are. I'll try to get to as many of those questions as possible. James, I understand that this is your first time joining us for the USO. Why is it important for you to give back to the military?
I mean, I wouldn't be able to do anything that I do without the military. I wouldn't be able to raise my family. I wouldn't be able to speak my mind. I wouldn't be able to be an artist. I wouldn't be able to provide for my family. The military makes it possible for this country to exist. And I mean, it's quite literally the least I could do. So it's important for me just to say thank you. Thank you. Words cannot express how much I appreciate your service and your sacrifice. And thank you for allowing me to do what I do. I've had military members of my family, and so I know I have some appreciation for the sacrifice and the dedication and the importance of what you all do. So thank you.
James, let's talk a little bit about one of my favorite movies, and just happens to be a movie that you were in. And it's hard to believe that it came out 21 years ago. 1999, Varsity Blues. Crazy, right?
Yeah. It's wild.
What do you remember most from the experience of making Varsity Blues?
It's some jobs, some movies you do, and then you walk away, and then you forget most of what happened. Varsity Blues is actually one of those movies I remember almost every day of shooting. It was a huge movie for me. It was a huge opportunity for me. It was my first lead in feature film. It was one of those weird things where I kind of thought about the movie before it ever existed. I know this is a little bit woo-woo, but when I was in college, my brother was a backup quarterback in high school. And it was a big institute. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if there was a movie about a backup quarterback who was a little more intellectual, maybe just a little different than your typical jock. And I'd even gone so far as to outline what the movie might be, what it might not be. And I never got around to writing it. I was in college, I was busy, I was doing theater, I did a pilot for a show on the WB. I was very busy. And then about 1.5 years to 2 years after I had the initial idea, the script showed up on my doorstep about a backup quarterback. And I thought, oh my God, this is it. And the script was really, it wasn't great, but I met on it anyway. And then they did a rewrite on the script, and it came back and it was almost perfect. And I thought, oh my God, this is the movie. This is it. And they wanted me to play a different role in the film. They wanted me to play the Paul Walker part.
Lucas.
And I said, there was Lance. Yeah.
Sorry,
They wanted me to
Lance.
play
Lance Harbor. Yeah.
Lance. And I said, I'm more of a Mox. I mean, Mox is my guy. Mox is what I need to do. And there was this whole back and forth. I had to pass on the movie twice, and they said, well, okay, finally, they'll let you screen test for both. I said, well, what if I screen test for both and they offer me Lance? I said, well, you have to do Lance. I said, no, I'm only going to play Mox. I said, you insist on that. I said, fine. It went away, and then they came back and said, all right. So I screen tested against, I think, 6 or 7 other guys to roll the Mox, and they had 7 days to tell me to roll. And they waited until about 4 p.m. on the 7th day. And then they finally told me I had it. So it was a huge opportunity. It was the first time I was ever even up for a role that big in a film. And when we got there, it's one of those rare experiences where what you think it would be like shooting the movie is exactly what it was like. We were in Austin, Texas. We were shooting with real football players. We were running plays. We were practicing with them. Every single play was diagrammed in X's and O's. We were running around Austin with the football players on our off days. And it was a really fun atmosphere. And because we were there with actual guys who played Texas high school football, there was an authenticity to what we were doing. And there was I hate the word important, because, it's entertainment. It shouldn't feel important, but it really did feel like we were telling an important story, because guys would come up to us and tell stories about their coach. And I remember a prop guy being brought to tears saying, I'm really happy to be in this movie because I'm not too, and he just broke up and he couldn't finish the sentence. So we felt like there was something worth committing to. Let's put it that way. And it was a huge opportunity for all of us. I mean, we were all super early in our careers, and it was go for broke time. So it was a fun team to be a part of. All those guys and girls looking at something like, this could be our big break. Let's go all out. And we felt like we had the right setup to capture it too. Brian Robbins, who directed it, was a huge sports fan. Mike Tolan, who produced it. I mean, he was the godfather of 30 for 30, that whole documentary series. We had NFL film guys working the cameras for all the football sequences. We shot football for a solid month, which is rare. Usually they underschedule the sport and then you kind of get away with what. I mean, we had cameras on the field. For a solid month, we'd show up at night, we'd do the walkthrough of what plays we're going to shoot, and then we'd shoot it from multiple angles, slow-mo. And also the football coordinator was a guy who was kind of considered the assistant or the number 2 on big football movies. And this was his first time, I think, running the show. So he was really looking to prove himself. So a bunch of people really looking at an opportunity and looking to prove themselves. So it was a great experience. I really loved it.
And the quality really shows in the football scenes. I mean, you can tell by watching it how much time you guys took and how professional the guys executing the filming of it were, because, a lot of times in sports movies, the sports don't quite feel authentic, but Varsity Blues really nailed the football. And what an all-star cast, too. You mentioned Paul Walker, you had Scott Kahn, you had John Voight, yourself, of course,
Yeah.
Al Larder. I mean, you guys were all pretty new to the business, relatively speaking. I mean, compared to, what you are established today. This was 21 years ago.
Yeah.
Could you feel the talent level in that cast while you were making Varsity Blues?
Yeah, we could. We felt like everybody was perfectly cast. It felt like, oh, wow. Looking around, you kind of feel like this is an all-star team. Like, there's nobody in the world who could play Tweeter other than Scott Kahn. There's just, he's the only dude who could do this. And then you look at Paul Walker, this golden boy who was a star, just walking to his car. He just emanated that kind of star quality. And you just everybody. And then we get Voight in the mix, an Oscar winner coming. Now, I I mean, John, if you've ever seen some of his performance, I mean, he's an acting icon. If you've seen Coming Home or Deliverance, I mean, he's legendary, and he's got an Oscar on his shelf and multiple nominations. And he comes down to Texas to do, you know, a teenage Texas high school football movie, but the guy came to play for keeps. I mean, he was just as dedicated as the rest of us, if not more. So it was, he was great.
Yeah, I mean, you know, as you know very well, and maybe people watching this interview know, that high school football in Texas is religion. I mean, people plan their weeks around the Friday night games going there. I've shot some stuff in Texas before, and I have been driving by a stadium on a Friday night, and I went to the game, and it was exciting. You can feel how important it is for these people. So you must be very proud of the way that you captured that Texas high school football vibe in Varsity Blues.
I really was, and it wasn't anything I can claim credit for. It was the filmmakers who knew to shoot it in a place that was authentic to the story we were telling. And when you do that, there's just something you get. There's so much that you get for free by going to the location where it actually takes place. Everything from what happens off camera to the people who populate your set to just the general vibe of the place. It bleeds into the film in a really great way. And so I'll, credit to Mike Tolan and Brian Robbins and Paramount and MTV Films who decided to shoot it there. It's funny, some of the stuff when I read it in the script and I thought, well, that's a little over the top. I mean, nobody really has a billboard of their son on their front yard, right? And one of the players went, oh, that's small. That's a small billboard compared to the ones in my hometown. I was like, really? I was like, hold on, they really put billboards up? He goes, yeah, they're actually much more ornate than that. It's like, okay, this is crazy. So some of those wild details I found out were actually a little bit understated.
Yeah, it really is amazing how important high school football is in Texas. And you mentioned MTV. It seems like a good time to mention that you won an MTV Movie Award for Varsity Blues.
I did.
So, congratulations.
I did, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Thank you very much.
James, at this time, I want to bring in some service members who are stationed at Sotocano in Honduras. They are with the 396 Combat Support Hospital, and they are on a 9-month rotation. Guys, welcome. What I'd like you to do is introduce yourselves. Please give me where your hometown is, because I know it's probably important for you guys to acknowledge your hometowns, and then ask James your question. Whoever's ready, step on up.
Me first. Hi, my name's Captain Jennifer Jones. I'm from Mesa, Arizona. Our unit is in Vancouver, Washington. I guess my question is, what was the most awkward scene that you filmed in the movie? If there were any. The
most awkward scene in the movie, for sure, was the whipped cream bikini. It was like the third day of shooting. I was still, to be honest, finding the accent a little bit. and I'm playing a high school guy who has agreed to go over a girl's house, and she shows up in a whipped cream bikini, and he has to somehow tell her no. But without a really great explanation as to why. It's not that he really loves his girlfriend. It's not that his friend really loves the girl. None of them were really all that solid reasons. So just trying to sell that as believable was tricky. Plus the awkwardness of there's an actress who's a really great girl. Allie's awesome. I've actually come to know her a little bit at this stage in life too, with her kids and husband and the whole thing. I worked with her husband since. But it's not the most comfortable thing for her to be on a set in that lack of clothing for, probably took 6 hours to shoot that scene. So yeah, I would say that one was probably the most awkward. Plus it wasn't like she could really cover up, because anything that covered her up would ruin the costume, if you can call it that. I'll call it a costume. So yeah, it was, I would say that was kind of strange. And plus there was a train. I remember a train not too far from that house that would all of a sudden just blow in the background and toot its horn. So we'd have to stop shooting for that.
And I'm sure that there were multiple times where they had to reapply the whipped cream too. So that might have been a little bit awkward with you,
Yeah.
both on the, here comes would that be the costumer or the art department, or would that be catering who came out and did the whipped cream?
I think, I think the union rules are rather gray on whipped cream bikinis. Is that props? Is that set decoration, or is that wardrobe? Where's that makeup? Yeah. I just remember a team of people coming in and trying to touch up. Yeah.
All right, there in Honduras, does anybody else have a question for James? Please step up, introduce yourself, and what is your hometown?
Oh, hey, I'm Sergeant First Class Greg Wolzinski. I'm from Chewela, Washington. It's northeast of Washington, a small little town. I was thinking about questions because I know it's been 21 years. You've had thousands of Varsity Blues questions your way. So mine is, I have two, if I can get two.
Sure.
You got it.
He was going to Brown, right? After
Yes.
So if he wasn't going to Brown, let's say he was going to Academy. Are you going Naval Academy, Air Force Academy, or West Point?
Oh.
Which one is Mox going to?
Wow.
I'll give you a hint. It's right here.
I can't see it. What is it? You
We're
tell
in the
me.
Army, so
You're in the what?
we're in the Army. So
You're in the Army? The Mox in the Army. I don't know if Mox would be a fit in the Army. I mean, is the Army welcoming rebels who don't like authority?
Yeah.
Okay.
But if he's a smart guy, he'd go Air Force.
That was kind of my first instinct. I mean, the guy did kick his own coach out of his locker room at halftime.
Yeah.
And give a great inspirational speech when they
gave an inspirational speech. But I'm feeling like that's somebody who would have to be pounded a little bit to fit into a unit in a cohesive fashion. So I don't know, man. Yeah.
All right. And then
I don't. But yeah, I'll say Air Force. I'll say Air Force.
I'll take that. And then the second one real quick is, you obviously have an infamous head coach in a football movie with John Voight. Who do you think is the greatest head coach been portrayed in a TV or movie, and why is it Eric Taylor from Friday Night Lights?
Well, you can't go wrong with Eric Taylor from Friday Night Lights. I mean, he embodied the heart and the humanity of a high school football coach, and somebody like that dealing with the pressure of what is Texas high school football. There's a toughness and a vulnerability to him that I found really engaging and interesting. I would say a couple close seconds are Al Pacino in Friday Night Lights. He's just always interesting and fascinating as a flawed, as a very, very flawed guy, trying to lead a bunch of men and losing his grip a little bit. And I gotta go with my man Voight. He is definitely on that short list, I think. Just for his dedication and his dedication, and also how great he was to me. And Gene Hackman in Hoosiers too is another performance you got to check out.
Nice.
And we really appreciate your questions there in Honduras. Thank you, guys. Thank you for your service. Stay safe down there.
Thank you.
And they are once again part of that 396 Combat Support Hospital. They're on a 9-month rotation. So thank you for your service, guys. James, does it seem surreal to you to think back now that Varsity Blues has become that kind of legendary, iconic movie? One of those ones where if someone's scrolling through the channels on a Sunday afternoon, they come across Varsity Blues. It's the kind of movie where you stop, you throw the remote across the room, and you watch the rest of it.
That's amazing. I mean, I had those movies growing up, and you never know when you go into something, how it's going to turn out. There's so many happy accidents that have to happen for a movie to work. And that was one where a lot of things just kind of rolled our way, because you go in with the best of intentions, but when you get on a set, there's some guesswork involved. There really is. Things that you think this speech is going to be so important. This scene is going to work this way. This is the linchpin. And then you get in the edit, you put it in front of an audience, and you realize, oh wait, we get to discover this about this story. So you just never know. But to be involved in anything that people are still watching this many years later is the dream. You know, it's a dream come true. So I'm super grateful for it.
Very cool. We're discussing Varsity Blues with James Van Der Beek, the star of the movie, of course. If you've got a question about Varsity Blues that you'd like to ask James, please use your Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, and we'll try to get to as many as possible. In fact, James, let's get to a few right now. Tim Kelly says, hey, Major Tim Kelly from Alaska, deployed to Portland on his 4th deployment. Tim, thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Followed you in your career for both movies and TV. His question for you is, you were a quarterback for both Varsity Blues and Angus. However,
Yes.
you played the hero and the villain. Did you tap into your Angus QB days for your role in Varsity Blues? Great question, Tim.
Great question. You know, it's funny. I did Angus first. And by the way, God bless you for going that deep in my career. I love it. Angus was my first movie I ever did, and I remember watching it alone in a movie theater. So that's how well it did on its opening weekend.
Plenty of seats available.
I mean, I brought a couple of friends, and there was maybe one other person in the theater, and I remember thinking, this isn't a good sign. Yeah. So anytime somebody brings up Angus, I'm a fan of theirs immediately. Yeah, that character was the bully. He was the bad guy. Tormented the hero of that movie, whose name is Angus. And that I really based on kids who picked on me in middle school. That was my revenge of remembering how it felt to be bullied, remembering what those guys did and the mentality and just stealing it shamelessly. And then what was crazy is a couple of years after the movie came out, I was on the train to New York City from Connecticut, and I ran into those guys, and all of them were so nice and couldn't believe how cool it was that I'd been in a movie. And I remember thinking, I literally based this bully character on you guys, and now you think I'm cool for it. It was sweet revenge. So when I built Mox, that guy was a completely different sort. He was, in my mind, the polar opposite of the character from Angus, because Mox is a good teammate. Mox cares about the people around him. He's a good friend, and really has a very, very strong moral compass and won't come off of it, even if it means personal detriment. He's gonna eventually stand up for what's right. And
ends up going to Brown on an academic scholarship instead
That's
of
right.
Scholarship. Pretty cool. So he's got the brains to back it up too.
Yes.
James, we have a question from Jared, who is from South Dakota. He is stationed in Japan. And Jared would like to know, are there any secrets about Varsity Blues that you can share? Is there anything that most people miss when they're watching it?
That's a very good question, Jared. First of all, thank you. Thank you for your service. Any secrets that people miss? I'm trying to think. Got to come up with something good. 2. All right, there are 2. One is my favorite line in the movie is an obscure one. It's when we're practicing with Kilmer, and he calls the dummy-O's out to go to your dummy-O follow your dummy-O QB, and I run past him, and Voight goes, yeah, keep smiling. Not sure if I'm allowed to curse, but anyway, it's one of my favorite lines because Voight ad-libbed it, and the secret is that it's not actually me running past him. What happened was, it was our first day of shooting football. We practiced with the guys, but I showed up for our first day, and wardrobe had the wrong helmet, the wrong shoulder pads, the wrong girdle. Everything was wrong. And this was the first day so they had lineman shoulder pads. So if I go to shoot as a QB in lineman shoulder, I would have to wear those the whole movie. It's going to be terrible. Right. And so I went there, and they said, well, listen, the excuse the entire movie was, there was a box that fell off, this box that had fallen off this imaginary truck. So I had to go, there's a shower that was not in use, but they're like a, you know, locker room showers, unair conditioned, in the dark, and there's boxes of pads. So I had to rifle through those to find some quarterback shoulder pads and the right helmet with a face mask, with a QB face mask and not a DB. And so as I was doing that, they were shooting with Voight. It was Voight's first day. And they're like, where's James? Where's James? And well, we don't have James, but we've got his double. So they had my stunt double, Peter Gardere, who played quarterback for UT. And so my first shot with Voight in the movie was actually not me, it was Peter Gardere, because I was in a dark shower room desperately trying to find pads that would fit for a quarterback. And so they just had Peter run past John Voight. So Peter, not an actor, he's a football player. So Voight is going, yeah, step it up, Mox, come on, what are you doing? Yelling at Peter Gardere. So Peter didn't know what to do. So Peter just kind of smiles as he's running past him. And that's when Voight said that line. And so it always makes me laugh that it was, again, happy accidents. Yeah. Had it been me running past Voight, I probably would have been super tough and kept my eyes down, and I wouldn't have smiled, and we wouldn't have gotten that line. So yeah, that's a secret. That's a secret.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. So now people, when you're out there watching Varsity Blues in the future, you'll know that when Mox runs by and he's told to keep on smiling, that's actually not James. James is in a shower stall looking for pads.
In a dark, unused shower, rifling through pads, sweating and panicking. Yeah.
James, I want to give a little shout out to Venetia White. She just submitted that she doesn't have a question, but she was actually an extra in Varsity Blues as a cheerleader.
Oh, wow.
Gilroy Mustangs. So you actually met her a long, long time ago on the set of Varsity Blues. So she just wants to say hey, and been a long time.
Well, thank you. Thank you for thank you for your service, and thank you for hanging with us on those long nights, because we'd shoot till dawn. Thanks for
Hey, Francis Salas would like to know, and you mentioned this before with Allie and her husband, who you worked with. Have you formed any long-lasting friendships with your co-stars from Varsity Blues?
You know, yeah. Anytime I see them, it's always a really pleasant reunion. I still keep in touch with Eli, who played Wendell. He's a football coach here in LA. And whenever I need to train for something athletic, for a role, for a movie, I call Eli. He's my first call, and he always hooks me up. Who played my girlfriend, I still keep in touch with her. I know her husband, he's awesome. Scott Kahn, I see from time to time. And then Voight. I mean, John's a real miller on that set. He was just great with us. And to this day, if I called him, he'll get back to me within 24 hours. Wherever he is, he might be in Slovakia shooting a movie, but he'll get right back to me and be there with advice or, you know, any counsel or anything that I need. He's really been great.
That's cool. Hey, I got another question for you from the Q&A feature. And if you'd like to ask James a question about Varsity Blues, once again, please use that Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. Type it in there, and I'll try to get to as many of them as possible. This comes from Jessica Donnelly. She is from Bridgeport, Connecticut, but she is currently stationed in Stuttgart. Yeah, that's your neck of the woods, right? That's kind of
about 20 minutes from where I grew up.
Very cool. So we've got a question from Jessica, and she would like to know, do you think Varsity Blues started the conversation of highlighting the pressure that young football players face, especially in places like Texas, where football is more than just a friendly game?
I don't know. I don't know if it started. I mean, it probably did spark some conversations. I wonder, I mean, I hope it sparked some conversations, because, yeah, I remember my brother playing football and the two-a-days in the heat and practices. I remember I got tickets to a concert about 6 months in advance, and he said, "Oh, I don't think I can go." I said, "Why not?" He said, "Football practice." I said, "It's a concert. 6 months from now. What's the?" And there really was pressure, and I remember people playing through injuries and obviously the concussion issues, and some awareness brought to it as of late. So I don't know if it sparked any conversations. Great. I think those issues were probably very prevalent, and that was what was in the Night Lights, which I know came out before the movie, and probably what inspired the movie. So hopefully it did start some conversations.
Hey, Jessica, we appreciate your service. We appreciate your question from there in Stuttgart, Germany. Go see the Porsche Museum if you haven't already. It's one of the great attractions in Stuttgart. James, it's funny, there's a little bit of a small world thing happening here on our USO MVP series. A few weeks ago, we actually had Mark Duplass as one of our guests.
Oh, wow.
You did an episode of Room 104, so there's a little bit of a small world connection there.
Yeah.
What are you working on nowadays? What sort of production are you in, and what is your role? Are you in production as an actor, as a writer, as a director? What's going on right now?
Right now, I've got a movie coming out this month called Bad Hair, which is a really bizarre horror film set in the 1980s, kind of MTV era. It's a comedy horror film, really crazy. Went to Sundance and it sold there. And that's just as an actor. I'm also working as a writer quite a bit. All these years in television, I have really come in useful in terms of creating it. So I've got a show that I've sold, which I'm about to go to pilot on, and a bunch of things in development right now. So yeah, I love the writer's room. I love the creation of shows. I love collaborating with other people, and I love finding the tone of something. That's what's most exciting to me right now is creating shows.
Is that something you'd like to transition into, or do you see yourself always being in front of the camera as well as behind it for your entire career?
I am very happy to be behind the camera. Being in front of the camera is something that I enjoy when I'm a part of something that I love. So it's funny. I don't have that desire of, oh, I have to be on a set. Unless it's a story that I really think is worth telling, I'd be just as happy behind the camera, just as happy creating from that side. But it's funny. It's a skill that I've honed over the course of almost 30 years now. So it'll be fun to see what kind of roles I get to play as I get older. I kind of look at acting as my retirement hobby. It's my retirement project. Yeah, something. Acting is my thing to keep my mind sharp and keep me around the young people as I get older.
Well, do you kind of consider Varsity Blues as the movie role that launched that side of your career? Because obviously you were very well established in television. You do Varsity Blues, and then from that point on, you did a lot of very successful movies. You got back into television as well, but you were kind of able to dovetail your career from television into both television and movies.
Yeah, it was huge. It was a huge break and a huge success. It was the #1 movie at the box office for 2 weeks. And it really opened the door to people in Hollywood at the time to say that, yeah, you can take somebody who's on a hit television show and they can open a movie. That audience will follow them there. So it led to a number of other movie opportunities and put me in a spot in the cultural lexicon too. That is something you can't ever calculate that. You can try for that, but it's really just, I think, luck of the draw.
Yeah, as we mentioned before, I mean, Varsity Blues, as you're saying, has really become part of the cultural lexicon. Even if you haven't seen it, maybe you're a younger generation who hasn't had a chance to see Varsity Blues yet, everybody knows what it is. Oh yeah, that's that movie about football. It's like, it's so well known overall that even if people haven't seen it, they still know what it is.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's rare. I mean, if you can step into one of those, look into one of those, you're very fortunate.
James, I want to let you know that we have people who are viewing our conversation from New Jersey, North Carolina, Germany, Kuwait, Delaware, Kentucky, Florida, Japan, Washington State, Maryland, Hawaii, Italy, Poland, Tennessee, Ohio, Canada, Alaska, Spain, Kansas, California, Ohio, Illinois, Bahrain, Qatar, Oklahoma, Texas. So we're truly worldwide right now. Got another question for you. And
thank you to all of you.
This is coming from Brooke, who is stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Brooke says, I heard that the guy who played Wendell Brown went on to be drafted to play football based on the movie. Any truth to that story?
There is no truth to that. However, Eli Swinton, who played Wendell Brown, I believe he played at Stanford. Super smart dude. Incredibly talented. He actually had a knee injury and played through it when he should not have. Had he not done that, he would have been drafted to the NFL for sure. He was far and away the best athlete on that field. And we had some former NFL players that we had as ringers playing high school football players on our squad. But he was so fast and so quick. We had to literally ask him to slow down his movements because they were just too quick to be appreciated by the eye. And we actually sped up the film and the camera in order to capture him too, when that didn't work. So we would shoot him at more than 24 frames a second, and we'd play it back at 24 seconds, and then play it back at 24 just to slow down his movements so that you could appreciate what he was doing, because he was just phenomenal.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, and his story parallels a story that was actually in the movie where the running back, had a knee injury that essentially prevented him from getting his scholarship. So,
it was a crazy day when we were shooting that scene, because he was sitting on the table going, I lived this moment. I was like, yeah. And it cost me a career. It was a pretty heavy moment.
That's amazing.
Another story about that scene too is I had this and I'm in this doorway, and I would improv some stuff, a lot of things I wanted to say, and it was feeling speechy. And John, in the middle of me talking, just turned around and started shutting the door in my face in the middle of a take. And I slammed the door open with my fist and came in and got to the rest of it. And what it did was it gave me the momentum to get through it without it sounding like a speech. And I was pissed off, and I finished the rest of what I had to say, despite the fact that he closed the door in my face, and they all cut. And John turns to me very subtly and says, "That was good, do that." And I realized, oh wait, he did that for my benefit. He saw what was happening and threw me the ultimate assist. And I remember thinking, wow, I mean, not only does he know his own stuff, but he's looking around to make everybody around him better. And in that moment, I decided that's the actor I want to be.
Yeah. That's a true veteran, a true professional, someone who's unselfish while they're acting and is, like you said, giving you the ultimate assist. And, it's another nice insider little tidbit that goes back to Jared's question too. Another question from the Q&A roster for you. This one comes from Amanda Chastain. She says, I've read that a new Varsity Blues TV show is in the works. If that's true, and if you're asked to be, would you do a cameo in an episode?
Well, this is a very good question. There is talk of a series. It's been sold, and negotiations are underway. I can't say much about it, but once we come through this pandemic and we see what shooting looks like, I think we'll know more. It's the most I'm at liberty to say right now.
Nice. The art of the tease. James Vanderbeek has it down. Yeah. That's fantastic. Amanda, I hope that answers the question. She is at Shepherd Air
Yeah.
Force Base in Wichita Falls, Texas. So, Amanda, thank you very much for your question. Let me get to another couple of questions for you, James. This one comes from the USO itself. This is from Rachel from Fort Riley, Kansas. Is there anything that you would have done differently with your performance in Varsity Blues?
You know, it's always easy to second guess and look back. I mean, in retrospect, to be completely truthful, I don't feel like I really nailed the accent until halfway through shooting. It was, and we had a guy who was an actor, who was a lovely guy, who was our dialect coach, but he wasn't really a dialect coach. He was just kind of a guy from Texas who would kind of say more all, more drawl. It's kind of, and he really did the best he could. But I know I struggled with it until about halfway through shooting. So I think that would be the one that I would go back and maybe get a little more help with that prior to shooting. So
that's kind of like the fallback of a dialect coach who's teaching someone the Texas accent. It's like, just more drawl. That's all you got to do, just drawl.
More drawl, more back of the throat. Yeah, you just got to.
All right, we got one more question for you, James. This one comes from Ashley Plyler. And Ashley says, we hear stories about people taking things from set or playing pranks on other actors while you're shooting. Did you take a memento from the set, or did you play any pranks on anybody else?
I did not play any pranks on anybody. They tried to play on me, but they did them in my trailer at a moment in time where I wasn't dressing in the trailer because I was dressing in the locker room with the guys. So they didn't work. Mementos. Yeah, I did. I took my jerseys. I still have my original number 4 Moxon jerseys, home and away. It's funny, I'm moving right now, which is why all the stuff in the background. I also found my cleats. I kept those. The necklace that I wore. Mom actually, this guy needs a hemp necklace. And my mom was making necklaces at the time, so she just made me one. And any other mementos from that movie? I think that's about it.
You know, I think you're right too, that a Texas high school quarterback, a key accessory would be the gold necklace. I mean, you always think like, you know, that's just part of the work.
Gold necklace, yes, but I decided Mox was a hemp necklace guy.
Oh, okay, he's one of those guys. Yeah. Well, this was 1999, so it was a different fashion time back then too.
It was also 1999, yeah. So that was a decision that I had made. Wear a hemp necklace in the middle of
you know what? After saying that, after suggesting the gold necklace and then hearing the hemp necklace, I think the hemp necklace is way more appropriate for the time and the place. And so you nailed it. There's a reason that you were cast in the role. James, it's been such a blast talking to you, man, and revisiting the iconic success that is Varsity Blues. I'd like to finish up today by giving you a couple minutes to offer your support and encouragement for the troops who are keeping us safe every single day.
Yeah, amazing. This is so much fun. Everybody out there who is serving in the military, thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I will do the best I can to be the best I can with this opportunity that you guys are creating for me. Thank you to you. Thank you to your families who are supporting you and also doing without you during this time. I just want you to know how grateful we are, and your work and your sacrifice and all the energy and sweat and effort that you put into it is not being taken for granted. So thank you.
Thank you for saying that, James. James Beek, can't thank you enough for joining us here on the USO MVP series. Star, of course, of the legendary Varsity Blues. Look out for his new movie, Bad Hair, coming soon. And look out for a possible cameo in a television remake of Varsity Blues. We got all the teaser information right here. And for you out there, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your service. Please stay safe and healthy, and check uso.org/MVP or with your local USO center for future MVP event information. James, thanks again, man.
Thank you. Stay safe, everybody.